Hello, welcome. I'm so happy to be with you here today at Penobscot Marine Museum. We've been looking at a winter scene painted by Dollie Smith for Elisha and Cynthia Hopkins. We looked at two maps, which gave us some information about some specific decisions that Dollie made about what to include and what to leave out of her painting. Today, we're going to look at some historical photographs to find out some more clues to see if we can tell what she's aiming at here. At the end, I also have some video clips of what this location looks like in the present day. Some things have changed and some haven't. As you can see, this photograph shows some young people skating on a pond. This isn't the same pond that Dollie painted, but the photo was taken in Maine and it was taken at a similar time when Dollie was painting. Although the photo isn't dated, we can make a decent rough guess about the era based on the clothing these folks are wearing. For instance, this girl's poofy sleeves look very Gibson girl, 1890s to 19 teens. Just like in Dollie's painting, we can see a mix of ages and genders. It's fun that they have sticks for playing hockey. That's something that young people still use on the ice today in this area. We also have written records of skating as an entertainment or social gathering in Maine. Emma Pendleton grew up in Searsport and was 15 years old in 1863 when she wrote in her diary, quote, Tuesday, February 17th. I have been down to Uncle Phineas's pond this evening to a skating party. There were about 50 there. Some of the girls have got so that they can skate well, but it is the first time that I have had them on for a great while, so I can do but little. I think it is nice exercise. I guess I shall try and learn how. It has been a nice day and a splendid evening. So there's a photo of the activity Dollie depicts in the painting. Now let's look at some photographs of the places we can see. Here are two photographs of Main Street in Searsport. We can see rows of tall brick buildings that are the commercial blocks built in the 19th century that are still here today. We already saw from the maps that there's many buildings which she left out. She left out all the industries such as shipbuilding, blacksmiths, tinsmiths. In the painting, she shows a little cluster of buildings for the center of town, but she doesn't show these tall brick commercial blocks. One unmistakable building near the pond in Searsport, which she chose not to paint, was this imposing hotel called Searsport House. It was originally built way back in 1831. It became Beals Tavern and then Searsport House, a large hotel. It continued as a business well into the 20th century. Searsport House comes up in some town records. In 1870, a complaint to the selectmen of Searsport stated that the proprietor of Searsport House, W.H. Matthews, quote, keeps a drinking house and tippling shack. The precise details of the prohibition changed over the years, but generally the sale of alcohol in Maine for personal consumption was almost completely forbidden from 1851 until the end of national prohibition in 1933. That means that in 1870 it was illegal to run a tavern in Maine. The complaint I quoted was not an isolated one either. Over the second half of the 19th century, there are recurring complaints about taverns brought before the Searsport town government. The persistence of these complaints highlights the difference between the law on paper and its actual enforcement. In many towns in Maine, the consequence of the alcohol prohibition ended up being just a tax on tavern owners, basically. They would show up in court twice a year to pay a fine, but no one would actually try to close down their establishment. After pondering all of this, I was surprised to find that according to the census, Dr. Elisha, Cynthia, and their daughter Ella lived in Searsport House in 1880 when Ella was 9 years old. This photo shows Water Street, the street just up from the brook. In the painting, this is just a little beyond the pond. This house over here looks a lot like the wood framed homes in the painting, but Dollie does not include any mansard roofs like this one. Once again, she seems to be leaving out architectural details that she may feel are more recent. This is the bridge over Mill Brook. Imagine when Route 1 looked like this. Look at the railing on the bridge. It looks just like the railing in the painting. So it seems like Dollie was painting this particular bridge. And look, here is that same house with the bay windows, which we looked at on the map in the previous video. We can see part of the mill here. She definitely left out this big building. And the lamppost, which she seems to have turned into a tree in her painting. It seems like Dollie Smith wanted to show the pond as it might have looked in the past. She chose not to depict the buildings which seemed new at the time that she painted. The industrial buildings and the houses with distinctive architectural features that were newfangled in her lifetime, like mansard roofs and bay windows. At the beginning of this video, in the upper right corner, you can just catch a glimpse of the beautiful old home with the bay windows that we talked about earlier. This video shows Mill Pond just north of the bridge. There are still goldenrod growing along the side of the pond. It almost makes you wonder whether Elisha and Cynthia, who were of a similar generation as Dollie, specifically asked her to paint a skating pond the way they all remembered it from when they were young. If you were going to commission a painting of your hometown, what view would you choose? And if you could have it painted in as it looked at any era, which time period, what decade would you choose? Thank you so much for joining us here today at Penobscot Marine Museum. See you next time. Take care.